Okay, we'll call the October meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education to order. A public notice will be read at the start of the open public session. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Balca?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny? Here. Ms. Urbia?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here. Can I have a motion for executive session, please?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Walsh. Would you read the resolution, please?
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975 permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances. And whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, student matters, negotiations related to the Sayreville Education Association, and the superintendent's contract. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately. Mr. Balca?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Urbia?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes. Okay, the meeting is closed. We will resume the open public session at 7:30. Thank you. Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to the October meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Take notice this public meeting of the Sayreville Board of Ed was transmitted to the Home News Tribune and the Star Ledger in accordance with Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. Further, in accordance with NJSA 10:4-621, a copy is posted outside the Secretary's office and also filed with the Clerk of the Borough of Sayreville. Please rise for the pledge to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Hill, roll call, please.
Mr. Balca?
Here.
Mrs. Bacco?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Callahan?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mrs. Kenny? Here. Ms. Rubio?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. Syak?
Here. Could you summarize our executive session, please, Ms. Hill?
Yes, the board discussed student matters, negotiations related to the Sayreville Education Association, and the superintendent's contract. Personnel was on the agenda but not discussed.
Okay, thank you very much. Approval of minutes. I'm sorry, there's no correspondence. Approval of minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the September 17th meeting?
So moved.
By Mrs. Bloom, do I have a second?
Second.
By Mr. Walsh. Are there any comments or corrections on the minutes? Hearing none, roll call on the minutes, please.
Mr. Balca?
Yes.
Mrs. Bacco?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Callahan?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mrs. Kenny?
Abstain, I was not at the meeting.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to our student council representative reports. We'll start out at the, actually, you know what? We're going to start out at the middle school and do ladies first. And we're going to do Ms. Mayer.
Good evening. November 1st is the deadline for all winter sport paperwork. Extracurricular activities. Student council elections are taking place this week for all officers. Voting is taking place via Google Forms. The 7th grade election went very smooth this morning. 8th grade elections will take place on Thursday during homeroom. School climate team is kicking off the Leaves of Change. Faculty and students design their own leaves with the goal they would like to achieve. All leaves will be displayed throughout the school. The music department will perform Seussical the Musical in January 2020. The Community Service Club and Student Council will be hosting the 6th grade Fall Festival Social. Will take place on Friday, October 25th from 3 to 5 p.m. at Sayreville Middle School. Pictures will be taken this week during physical education classes. 8th grade pictures took place today. 7th grade pictures will take place Wednesday, and 6th grade pictures will take place on Thursday. PTO school store is open every Friday during lunch periods. Student IDs were distributed All students are required to wear them throughout the school day. The IDs are used for book borrowing and lunch payments at lunch. On October 4th, students in grades 6 to 8 participated in an assembly presented by Mallory's Army. The presentation made a significant impact on both the faculty and students at Sayreville Middle School. Everyone is still wearing their blue bracelets to show their support. Red Ribbon Week activities are being finalized. Our first school spirit week will be taking place during the last week of October. Monday is Pajama Day, Tuesday is Superhero Day, Wednesday is Crazy Hair and Sock Day, Thursday is Halloween Costume, and Friday is Bomber Day. We will be celebrating Halloween on October 31st with the highly anticipated hallway decorating and costumes worn by faculty and staff at Sayreville Middle School. Thank you.
And how are the student IDs working out? What's been the reaction?
The kids weren't very excited about them, but I mean, they got used to it quickly. But everyone's wearing them.
All right, excellent. And then you mentioned the leaves have changed. So what do you think some of the changes are going to be that students are going to want at the middle school on their leaves?
They're gonna definitely want to put like better grades on them. That's what I'm gonna do at least.
Okay.
And they might want to change the middle school more, like add like something to it to make it a better place or environment for the students to learn.
Okay, excellent.
Mr. Walsh, I thought all the leaves were brown.
No, the skies
And
are
the sky is
gray.
gray.
I think Ms. Mayer has no idea what you're talking about.
I know. Don't worry, Abigail. I come up with these things sporadically.
Any other questions for our middle school?
Steven
student rep?
misses this.
All right, Mr. Farley, you have a tough act to follow, but I'm sure you're going to do great.
Good evening. A little over a month has already gone by in the school year. With that, there have been many events that already took place. The school week of October 1st to October 4th was Pep Rally Week. Each day had its own theme in which the students participated in. Tuesday was Jersey Day, Wednesday was Pink Out Day, Thursday was Tie-Dye Day, and Friday was Blue and Gray Day. Homecoming in the fall pep rally took place on October 4th and went very well. At the pep rally, the seniors came out on top for tug of war. They even defeated the teachers in tug of war. The Friday night football homecoming game resulted in a 9-6 win for the Sayreville Bombers. For athletics, the soccer teams and the football team hosted their senior nights. For boys soccer, it was especially emotional as it was Coach Cifelli's last home game as the Bombers' head soccer coach, due to him announcing his retirement as a teacher in December. Last Friday, the Sayreville Bombers football team defeated New Brunswick 7-0 on their senior night. I watched the game while working the snack stand for class council and was accompanied by Mr. Syek, who helped as well. The cross-country team traveled to Disney as they participated in the Disney Cross Country Classic meet. From what I heard, they had a great experience. Most of the fall sports regular seasons are coming to an end, and GMCs and states playoffs will begin soon. On another note, lanyards with ID cards were distributed to every student in the high school and are required to wear it all day. So far, most of the students at the high school have cooperated with the new rule. Progress reports were issued last week, marking the halfway point of the first marking period. Also, many students took the SATs on October 5th, including myself, and are expected to receive their results on October 18th. The PSATs are taking place this upcoming Saturday at the high school. As a lot of events have taken place at the high school, time has been flying by through the school year so far. Today marks a month away from the end of the first marking period. Therefore, students are making an effort to maintain or improve their grades to have started out with good grades in the new year.
Excellent.
Okay, and how are the students reacting to the lanyards at the high school?
They always have them on.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well done.
You rock, Steven.
And I was also at Coach Cifelli's final home match, and it was a really nice ceremony that they put together to honor a coach who certainly is deserving of that. And also congratulations as well to our cross-country team. When you look at the success that our cross-country team, our track teams have had over the past several years, it really is a growing program, and they've achieved a lot of success that we just haven't seen in the past.
Well, and I believe one of our runners came in 8th place. Brett
Indeed.
Moran?
Yeah.
Yeah, 8th
Yeah.
place.
Any other questions for our high school student rep? Okay, and Dr. Labby, he said he's very interested in seeing the referendum presentation.
Really?
Yes.
Did
I
you
told
bring
her-
a sleeping bag?
I
'Cause
told
it's going
him
to
you
be
should
a
be done in about
long
3 to 4 hours.
presentation. Just kidding. Yeah, you're going to like it.
I took
All
a
right.
20-minute nap.
You may be able to get another one, just stand by.
Abigail, you're going to have to go home now, because it's going to be long. Just kidding, honey. You can stay. I don't want your mom mad at me.
All right, thank you both very much. Again, you're welcome to stay. If you've got homework to do, you're also welcome to go as well. All right. We'll move on to my board president's comments. I just want to, talk about a little bit about the referendum. You're going to see a presentation tonight by Dr. Labby, which is the show that he has been taking on the road. He's done several faculty meetings already with this presentation. He's spoken to the parents at Eisenhower, spoken to the parents at Truman, and we're on deck tomorrow to speak to the students at the speak to the parents at the Samsel Upper Elementary School. It is a referendum that, we've got 5 different options we're going to be surveying parents and community members on. But it's a referendum that I really believe can be a game changer for this district. When you look at where we've come in the last 7 years with regard to universal preschool, with regard to looping, with regard to the technology infrastructure that we've done, with regard to the physical plant and school improvements that we've done in the district, with regard to the curricular improvements that we've had in the district. Combine that with the phenomenal staff that we have here, the phenomenal administrative team that we have here. This referendum is an opportunity for us to make a significant investment in our core infrastructure, in our facilities, to create a learning environment that is more welcoming, more conducive to learning, and ultimately is going to be an investment in this community, its schools, and in property values across the entire community. So I really encourage you to stay even after the presentations are done if you've not had a chance to see this presentation, because I really think it can be a game changer for the district, as does the Board of Education. So those are my comments. We will move on to Mr. Esposito for the district highlights and Board Vice President comments.
We have a full night, so I'll try to run through these very quickly. The Sayreville Middle School's application for a junior honor society has been approved, and later this year, 7th and 8th grade students will be selected. On September 19th, Project Before faculty, staff, and PTO treated the preschoolers to an ice cream social and magic show. So thank you to Mrs. Burns, her faculty and staff, and the PTO for a great evening. Back on September 20th, the Arliss staff PTO had a welcome back barbecue. Everyone enjoyed the cuisine by Mr. Preston in the back over there. Bunch of games, great job. They do a really good job over there. So thank you for the staff and the PTO for a great evening. Back on October 1st, the Superintendent's Parent Advisory Council, SPAC, met to discuss the strategic plan that addresses our ongoing and declining facilities and infrastructure, and renovating Sayreville School and so on and so forth. There will be both parent and staff meetings held through the month of October, as Mr. Sayek just alluded to discuss the upcoming referendum. On September 23rd, Mr. Nasser and Ms. Burns presented a preschool expansion aid presentation to about 100 parents at the UES. They did an amazing job. I was there that evening. The program begins on the 14th of October, and once again, so beginning on October 28th, transportation will be provided in accordance with our transportation policy. I guess they can call the board office if they have any questions, right, at this point? Okay. Back to school nights were held recently, well coordinated and well attended by many parents. So thank you to the administration, the faculty, and support staff for the information they communicated, as they did an excellent job once again this year. A few more. Homecoming was held on October 4th, as Mr. Farley had alluded to. We had a victory over Edison. And we had music from our award-winning marching band, and congratulations to that marching band for winning second place in the Brick Memorial High School March Band competition. We commend them also for their performance at the annual Night of 1,000 Stars, which our president, Mr. Sayak, MCs, I believe. He were there this year again? Yes, I wasn't there this year, but you always do a great job. And finally, as Abigail alluded to, at the middle school, Diane Grossman, founder of Mallory's Army, visited the students and staff to teach them about respect and the horrible impact bullying can have on young people. Diane's daughter Mallory took her own life 2 years ago after being bullied, And while I've never seen this presentation, I haven't heard anybody that says it's anything short of amazing. That's all we got.
All right, thank you very much.
And just to add to that, our amazing band won first place last weekend
Yes, they
in
did.
a tournament as well. So we're incredibly proud of them.
So as we tee up our presentations, we're going to end with the referendum presentation that I mentioned, but I just want to kind of, I guess, tee this up before we make the individual presentations. As you go through these, just think about, A, the staff that we're recognizing for earning tenure. While it says that they're earning tenure, and they are, we're also recognizing them as the first four-year cohort from Sayreville University, which is something that we've implemented in the last few years as our commitment to professional development for our staff. When you look at our staff achieving perfect attendance, that represents the commitment of our staff to our students, to being here every single day. And then as you move through the goals and the achievements that are listed in the State of the Schools, just think about, as every single one of them is mentioned, what more we could do if our schools were climate controlled, what more we could do if we could convert Slover School to an 18 to 21-year program for our special needs children, what more we could do if in that same school in a separate area we could have an alternative school for students who need additional assistance so that we don't need to send them out of district like we currently do for our 18 to 21-year-old special education students, what additional support we could provide them in that type of learning environment. So as you think about all that we've accomplished, all that Dr. Labby's going to share with you that this team has accomplished in the last year, just think about what we can accomplish together in the next 7 years if we invest just a little bit more into the Sayreville Public Schools. So Dr. Labby, with that, I'll turn it over to you for our next presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Sayak. I'd like to begin by just talking about one of the crown jewels of our district. Several years ago, Shannon Johnson had the vision of creating something called Sayreville University. She was the first architect, and later she became a vice principal at one of our middle schools, at our middle school, and handed the baton off to another amazing leader, Ms. Obrick. Both of them are the architects, as well as several other people of this crown jewel we call Sayreville University. So without any further delay, I'd like to invite Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Obrick up. Oh, and I knew I was forgetting someone very, very important, and Mrs. DeSantis, I am so sorry for failing to recognize you as well, who has been there along the way as the right-hand person to both Ms. Johnson and Ms. Obrick, and she needs to come on up here too, is Ms. DeSantis. You can take pictures up here. She too has been incredibly instrumental in developing what we call a Sayreville University. So, Ms. Johnson, Ms. Obrick, it's all yours.
It is a sincere pleasure and an honor for us to be here this evening to celebrate the first class of Sayreville University and the New Teacher Institute. For nearly 20 years, Sayreville Schools had one of the best mentor programs, and with the creation and development of Sayreville University, mentoring transitioned to induction, and tonight we celebrate the teachers who began their career with us in 2015 and who have accepted tenure with our district to continue their work and dedication to our students. Please enjoy this clip of the class of 2019.
So, Mr. Farley, how do you think you did on the SATs?
I mean, it was the first one for me, so we'll see, but
So you did excellent.
definitely.
Yeah, of course.
One of the most stressful jobs you can have is our technology person. Don't worry.
Mr. Walsh, how did you do on the SATs?
What's perfect scores? I had great teachers here at Sayreville, like Miss Rubio, so I did excellent.
And me as well.
Good answer.
And so, thank you for your dedication, your hard work, and your participation. Thank you to all of the mentor coordinators, the mentors, and the buddies who provided excellent support. At this time, we would like to recognize you with a small gift, including our very special Sayreville University pin made by Ms. Gordon and her pre-vocational students. Congratulations.
From our high school, Roshan Benoy. Also from the high school, Miss Emily Swanson. From our middle school, Linda Gates. Amanda Mangiello. Kerry Williams. From Arleth Elementary School, Karen Wright. From Truman Elementary School, Erin Kelly. And Jennifer Rice from Truman.
So thank you again, Barb DeSantis. We wouldn't be here without you, nor would our new Teacher Institute. Thank you to Nina for putting Sayreville University in great hands. And thank you so much to the Board of Ed and Dr. Labby. Sayreville University is truly a crown jewel that I'm very proud of. I'm very excited. It's the first class.
Can we have all of our teachers come back up? Thank you so much.
I didn't expect to get emotional.
And we need you guys up there too, right over there in the middle.
Totally.
What? Short people in the front. Stand sideways, it makes you look skinnier.
Okay, and this is a very special moment as well. As Mr. Sayak mentioned before, our teachers are incredibly dedicated and committed to promoting the most positive outcomes for our students. And I should correct that by saying our teachers, our support staff, our administrators, they're all committed to promoting the most positive outcomes for all of our students. And one of the ways in which they demonstrate that is through what we call perfect attendance. So at this point, we'd like to recognize and celebrate the staff members in the district who achieved perfect attendance for the previous school year. Now, there are some members that were not able to make it today, so what we're going to first do is we're going to first recognize the staff members that took the time to come out, and then we'll read off the names of the other staff members who unfortunately could not be with us.
They need a day off sometime.
Exactly. So let's begin with the person that's been on this list every single year since I've been here, and I presume she's probably been on this list far beyond that, too. The principal of the Samsell Upper Elementary School, Mrs. Coglianese.
Graduated from an outstanding Sayreville Warmore High School class. That's a lot better.
That's right.
Congratulations.
And, oh, don't go anywhere. Yes. And from the Sayreville Middle School, Samantha Howell. Yay. From the Eisenhower School, Patricia Langen. From the high school, or actually the entire district, our supervisor of guidance, Ms. Sokola. And I presume she's probably been on this law for many years as well. And one of our extraordinary administrative assistants from Special Services, Palma Van Gonten. She's our frontline expert. Some other members that couldn't attend tonight, I just want to recognize as well. Barry Carr from the Samsell Upper Elementary School. James Coleman from the high school. Tom Law from the high school. George Nowak from the high school. James Parse from our transportation department. Joanne Samra from the Samsell Upper Elementary School, as well as Margaret Santapaga from the Upper Elementary School. Mark Skibick from Transportation, Joan Sylvester from Transportation, Ronald Tuardos from the Samsell Upper Elementary School, Luigi Ventri from Transportation, Jennifer Wisniewski from Transportation, and Edward Zarowski from the high school. We congratulate them, we celebrate them, and we recognize them as well for demonstrating perfect attendance. So please, give them a big hand as well. So at this time, if our perfect attendance recipients could join us in the middle here, so we could take a nice picture of you with Mr. Sayak.
Just Donna needs to be in front.
Okay, it's this point, if you dare to remain, put your seatbelts on because you're going to be here a while. Otherwise, if you choose to leave, no, administrators, you got to stay. If you do choose to stay, the presentation, there is a friendly wager with members of the Board of Education and myself. For some reason, they think I'm long-winded. But I promise them, and there is a wager on this, that we will get through this portion within an hour. I'm thinking close to 45 minutes. So if you dare to hang on with us, please do so. If not, I would position yourself close to the back so you could sneak out whenever you need to. And I am kidding with our administrators. I know that at the high school we start early. I would like to take this opportunity to, in front of the board, recognize our incredible team of administrators. We call them the A-team. You guys are nothing less than amazing, and we can't thank you enough for all that you have done to effectuate change that has promoted the most positive outcomes for our students. You all rock, and thank you guys for coming tonight. So at this point, my back will be turned. So if you choose to exit, I won't notice, except I will notice you, Mr. Preston. All right, here we go. The clicker. So of course, this is an annual celebration of the district. This is a time similar to the State of the State or the State of the Union, where we have an opportunity to communicate to you the state in which our school district is in, where we get an opportunity to celebrate our accomplishments and focus your attention on the future, and so forth. So tonight, you're going to hear, obviously, from me. I'm going to go through our goals, what we accomplished last year, what we want to accomplish this year. Dr. Shediak's going to talk to you about our standardized assessment results. Unfortunately, Mr. Glock Malloy could not be here tonight with us. He is watching via live video stream. Hi. Hi, Mr. Glock Malloy. So he is with us in spirit as well as on the internet. And then finally, as Mr. Sayak alluded to earlier, I will be giving our for our facilities improvement strategic plan presentation, as well as briefly showing you the budget development calendar for the year 2020-2021, which we are also asking the board to approve this evening. So we have a lot of things to celebrate this evening. Most importantly, and one of the things I want to say is there are Chromebooks in the back. If you want to grab a Chromebook so you can see the presentation, the slideshow is 77 slides. So if you'd like to go get a Chromebook right now, we can help you go on to the public district website. So you can go to the Board of Education section and click on the presentation. It is on there. So they're right in the back there by Mr. Preston. Anybody that needs a Chromebook, feel free to get one, because I am going to go through the slides pretty briskly. So we do need to celebrate. Our third graders did amazing on last year's NJSLA assessments, highlighted by the fact that nearly 76% of our third graders at Truman met or exceeded standards on the math assessment, and nearly 70% of them did the same on the English language arts assessment. Similarly, our 10th grade students at the high school, 70% of them, or close to that, were meeting or exceeding expectations on the 10th grade NJSLA assessment, which is a very important test because that's the test that we use as a graduation requirement. So 70% of them right off the bat met their graduation requirement. We also had some other fantastic accomplishments with regard to academics. Most notably, our advanced placement scores continue to rise significantly. And that's something we take incredible pride in. We have the most amazing teachers teaching those classrooms. Our students are very committed, very motivated, and it surely is demonstrated here in their efforts. We actually raised our average score, and as passing score is considered a 3, we raised it from a 2.87 previously, which, by the way, was the previous high in the past several years, to 3.19. And that's pretty amazing. And again, a testament to those teachers and those students in those classes. We did a lot of things, curriculum and instruction-wise. We purchased a lot of resources. We installed Systems 3000. We purchased enough one-to-one devices to now go fully one-to-one throughout the district. That's preschool through 12th grade. We have enough devices per student, which is something that we take great pride in. We purchased additional Achieve 3000 license, as well as a new Envision Math electronic resource platform, which I believe is now up and running. So we're incredibly happy with all the things. And finally, we've implemented Fontes and Pinnell, our reading system that we used previously in K-2. We've brought that up to 3rd grade, and our preschoolers are actually using it, which is incredible. In terms of facilities-wise, yes, I am giving you a facilities improvement strategic plan presentation later, but we have been able to accomplish a lot of things. In fact, last year, we installed secure retention vestibules at the high school, middle school, and at SAMSO. If you've been to those schools, you see them. They're pretty cool. We paved parking lots at the high school, middle school, Arleth and Wilson. We installed a bus parking lot at SAMSO. We changed those horrible open concept classrooms at Truman. The final classroom was partitioned off, so there are no more open concept classrooms. We refurbished the floors at the Eisenhower School. At the middle school, the cafeteria and gymnasium floors have been refurbished. We refurbished the boys and girls locker rooms at the middle school. At the high school here, we refurbished the teacher copy room bathroom as well as the main office bathrooms, and we gave the whole main office a makeover. We constructed a new principal's office here, and of course, if you haven't seen it already, our athletic complex is completely brand new. New turf field, new track, and we also repaired the drainage problem at the baseball field right across from us. So we were able to accomplish a lot, but as you'll hear later, there's still much work to be done. In terms of school safety, I mentioned the secure retention vestibules, but we've also installed exterior video cameras so that we now have full exterior video surveillance coverage at every school. By February, we'll have full interior coverage at every school. As mentioned earlier, not only do our students have new IDs, which, by the way, when they come into school, they swipe so that we know that they're actually students, and we register that they're in the building at that point, but our staff also receive new swipe IDs as well. Grants. We've been very, very aggressive in trying to get grants, and thanks to Dr. Shediak and her team, first of all, we were able to get a $44,000 advanced placement computer grant, a $5,000 grant from BASF to construct a greenhouse, which, by the way, I believe our students, under the guidance of our maintenance staff, are going to be constructing sometime within this month. Bristol Myers provided us with $6,000 in grant funds. Our community partners here, Ashland, provided us with $5,000. That's a typo. It should be $5,000. Along with that, DuPont gave us a $10,000 grant. The Special Olympics continues to provide us with grant funds. And as you know, we are a unified champion district. They provided us with $22,000. And of course, the big news this year, we received close to $2.8 million in preschool expansion aid. So beyond that, we do establish goals that we go over and we try to accomplish. And you know, if you look at our finance goals, we were not able to potentially accomplish this particular first goal, but we did generate a profit of close to $300,000 in our food service department.
I think it was about $250,000.
$250,000. So while we didn't increase our catering revenue, we did have a profit over $250,000 in our food service department, which is beyond remarkable. But as you can see here, all of the other goals in 2019 dedicated to finance, they were accomplished. In terms of facilities, as you can see here, everything was accomplished. We did intentionally, I was a little bit overzealous, thinking that we'd be able to get the elementary school retention vestibules done by this summer, and of course, we didn't do that. But those will be constructed next summer. In terms of the numbers 3 and 4, we plan to potentially accomplish those through the strategic plan that I'm going to show you a little bit later. In technology, as you can see, and again, I'm going through this briskly, it is on the website so you can take the time to look at it. In technology, we accomplished all of our goals. Did you hear that, Mr. Glock-Malloy? You accomplished all of your goals. In terms of student achievement, it's remarkable. Again, all of our goals that we set forth to accomplish were accomplished. And of course, the one that we're especially proud of is that Algebra 1 goal. Culture and climate. We weren't able to accomplish number 1 completely, but many parts of number 1 were accomplished. But as you can see, every other goal that we identified, including the creation of career academies, particularly our Business Academy and our Future Educators Academy, those were accomplished. So that, after, obviously, now we can go into goals that we've identified for this year. So our administrative team met, we discussed goals, we had our administrative retreat, and we determined which goals of the original goals we would go ahead and move forward with. So our finance goals for the year 2019-20, we only have 2, but they're pretty rigorous goals. We've been pretty successful in the past 2 years with a self-insured prescription program. So now what we want to do is explore a self-insured medical benefit program. We hope by doing so, we'll save the taxpayers as well as our employees a great deal of money. We also want to increase the number of parents who submit free and reduced lunch applications by at least 25%. So the number of people that submitted last year, we want to increase that by 25%. We do believe that far more parents are eligible for free and reduced lunch that are actually applying for it. So those are our 2 finance goals for this year. And Board of Education members, as you know, these goals are on the agenda for you to formally approve during the governance portion of the meeting. In terms of facilities, as you will see later on tonight, we do want to submit to the to the Department of Education a potential referendum, of which we haven't yet determined completely. We're going to need the feedback from our community to determine which option is most appropriate for this district. But we do want to go out for a referendum. And if we do want to go out for a referendum, we've got to be able to submit that to the Department of Education by March. Likewise, we also want to capitalize on what's called an energy savings improvement project. And that too has to be submitted by July 1 to the Department of Education for approval. So those are our facilities goals for the 2019-20 school year. In terms of technology, we want to develop budget for and implement a sustained device life cycle plan for replacing district technology, hardware, security, and end user devices, inclusive of classroom devices. So basically what we're saying with this goal is we've invested a lot of money in our technology infrastructure and our one-to-one devices, but we've got to develop a plan to, over the years, budget for the replacement of some of these things. For instance, there are many one-to-one devices that we have right now that are at or close to their end of use cycle. We've got to begin to replace as we go along so that we don't have to continue to buy in bulk. When we have switches, we have to, again, build into our budget replacing those switches so that we don't have to replace 10 or 11 switches at a time and so forth. We also want to install the necessary security cameras so that we can ensure that we have internal and exterior video surveillance coverage in every single one of our buildings. As I mentioned earlier, we have external and internal coverage at the middle school and at the high school. We need to make sure that we have that at the high school, at the elementary schools, including the upper elementary school. We want to make sure that that happens by February. And I put August there, but we're actually really shooting for February. We want to budget for, purchase, and install. We want to collaborate with administration and faculty to develop and implement an efficient system for evaluating the effectiveness of purchased software solutions. This came up during our retreat, talking about how much return on investment are we getting in the softwares that we use. For instance, Achieve 3000, ST Math, and so forth. So we want to come up with a way of measuring how effective these software systems are, or Systems 3000, and so forth. And finally, we want to explore, develop, and implement technology systems for the purpose of safely streaming on the internet, like Mr. Glock-Malloy is doing right now, for all of our parents. So if you don't get to a Board of Education meeting, you can click on and watch what's going on live. Or, in terms of athletics, if you don't get a chance to come to the football game, we can stream the football game live so you can see what's going on. And of course, we can do that with other activities that go on in all of our buildings. So I happen to know that Mr. Wolranowitz and Mr. Glock-Malloy are working very closely, and they're pretty close to a solution on that. So that's one that I expect to be accomplished pretty soon. In terms of student achievement, we want to continue to raise the bar for student achievement. We want, again, 70% of our students in grade 10 meeting or exceeding expectations on the ELA assessment. We want 61% of our students in grade 4 meeting or exceeding expectations on the ELA, NJSLA assessment. And we want 60% of our students in grade 6 meeting or exceeding expectations as measured by the NJSLA in English language arts as well. In terms of mathematics, we want 60% of our students enrolled in middle school algebra meeting or exceeding those expectations, as compared to the previous year where 54.4 were meeting or exceeding expectations. Likewise, we want 49% of our students enrolled in grade 6 meeting or exceeding expectations on the NJSLA math, as compared to the 36% that were last year. And finally, we want 58% of our students enrolled in grade 5 meeting or exceeding expectations in the NJSLA math, as compared to the previous year, which was 48.6%. Included within that, we want to improve college and career readiness by developing a STEM academy at the Sayreville War Memorial High School for implementation in the year 2020-21. We want to increase preschool education because we got that preschool expansion aid for over 500 preschool children in Sayreville. Right now, we're currently educating close to 400, but we want to increase that. They say our universe is 800, but we at least want to educate over 500 preschool children in Sayreville. And we just toured a facility to which we think we can accomplish the bulk of that. And then finally, as Mr. Sayak alluded to before, we want to develop and implement a program by January of 2020. Boy, Mr. Nasta, the pressure's on you. Wow, January? Wow, by January, I'm just kidding with him. I changed that. He was really September of 2021, but I changed it to January. We did yesterday? We already accomplished that? Then, board, I recommend that we make that number 600. But by 2021, we want to try to open our 18 to 21-year-old program. That is a very, very rigorous goal, but one of which we talked about, and I think that we can accomplish. We definitely have to have it ready for the 22-23 school year, I believe, right? The 22-23. Actually, the 21-22 school year it has to be ready for. So that's a pretty rigorous goal. In culture and climate, we want to enhance the culture of the school district by identifying in collaboration with the entire school community and incorporate it into the vision of the Sayreville Public Schools, the core values of what defines a Sayreville bomber. And that's something that Dr. Aguilis, I should say, has been working very hard on. He's asked people to complete surveys. Our Culture and Climate Committee for the district has been going over that data and so forth, but we want to incorporate that data into our vision and mission. We want to continue to ensure the safety and security as well as the physical and psychological well-being of our students and staff by collaboratively developing a potential implementation of a cooperative and a coordinated multiple borough, state, and federal agency reunification plan. If you don't know what a reunification plan is, heaven forbid we have a school emergency in which we have to evacuate our students. We need to send them to a place so that they can be reunified with their families, whether it's staff members or students. That's something in which we would need a very coordinated effort by all members of, or all agencies within the community, our fire department, our police department, and we'd also need a location to volunteer their space. I know that Mr. Sprague, our school safety and security specialist, is working on that. And I believe he's pretty close to that as well, and we're probably going to have a plan by February. We also want to improve the climate of each school by implementing collaboratively and researched and developed macro and micro strategies for reducing the number of student behavioral infractions resulting in out-of-school suspensions. We had far too many out-of-school suspensions last year. And most importantly, the number of students who are identified as being chronically absent. And they go hand in hand because student suspensions do count as absences. So chronic absenteeism is also very much related to out-of-school suspensions. So we are focusing on reducing the number of behavioral infractions that result in suspensions, as well as reducing the amount of students that are chronically absent, and that is 15 days or more in a school year. Those are our goals, what we accomplished in 2018-19, as well as what we are looking forward to accomplishing in 2019-20. Dr. Shediak, I know that you have a presentation to give, so I'm handing the baton off to you.
Good evening. This part of the presentation is actually required by the state. We're required to report on student assessment results within 60 days of when we receive the results from the state. We have to report on NJSLA, DLM, I'll explain what that is, access for ELLs. NJSLA science we do not report on this year because we have not received the results yet at this time. Okay, first we'll talk a little bit about English language arts. Now this is the first year that we've administered the NJSLA. Formerly we administered the PARCC assessment. NJSLA is very similar. It's actually a little bit shorter than the PARCC assessment, but other than that it's almost identical. Okay, so here are our results. Our results are in the darker color with the numbers at the top of them. Those are the district results as compared to the statewide results. Okay, so just taking a quick look, we exceeded the state averages in 3rd grade, 5th grade, and 10th grade. Okay, notable in 3rd grade, we exceeded the state average by 10%, and in 10th grade, we exceeded the state average by 8%. In a few of the grades, we were below the state average. Okay, part of what we have to report to you are the trends, and we have to compare year after year. So we went back 5 years. The first 4 years are the PARCC assessment, and the most recent year is the NJSLA assessment. Okay, again, the results, you can see we have grown in the past 5 years in 3rd grade by 8 points, in 4th grade by 8 points over 5 years, in 5th grade by 8 points over the past 5 years. 6th grade, 2 points, 7th grade, 7, 8th grade, we've grown 16 points over the past 5 years. We've gone down in 9th grade 7 points, and our 10th grade scores have improved by a total of 22 points over the past 5 years. Okay, the next slide shows our proficiency by race over the past 5 years. And you can see we've remained fairly consistent over the past 5 years within each of the racial subgroups. Okay, next we break it down by program. The first set is free and reduced lunch, 504. LEP, which is limited English proficiency, or ELL students, special ed, and general education. And as you can see, in most categories over the past 5 years, we have made an improvement. Okay. The next slide, we talk about our math scores. Okay. The ones with the numbers atop, the orangey color, that is our district scores, and the state scores are on the left in the blue color. Okay, if you notice, we broke down Algebra 1 between middle school and high school to give you an idea of what that looks like. 8th grade, there's very few students. Our numbers are low. We don't have about less than a third of our students are taking 8th grade math. The majority of our students are taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade. Okay, here's our comparison over the past 5 years in math. Again, if you notice, in 3rd grade math, we've increased 19 points over the past 5 years. We did particularly well this past year. In grade 4, we've shown a 6-point increase. Grade 5, a 5-point increase. 6th grade actually stayed exactly the same. You know, in between, we've had some ups and downs. And these, remember, when we're looking at these numbers, these are by grade level. It's not the cohort of students. It's different students each year. Okay? And we do have information, and that's another data point that we do look at, is the cohort information, how the same group of students score beginning in 3rd grade and moving up through the years. Okay, the next slide breaks down our PARCC and NJSLA math scores by racial subgroups. Again, there's not a huge change in all cases that they have actually risen over the past 5 years. Okay. Next, we have the math proficiency by program. Again, we look at starting on the left, free and reduced lunch, students with a 504 plan, LEP, our English language learners, our special ed students, and our general education students. Proficiency by gender. Again, the numbers have remained fairly steady. On the left is our English language arts, and on the right are our math scores. Okay, the access for ELLs. This is a new test that we're reporting on. We have administered this test to our English language learners for quite a few years. However, we have never done a public report on this. It's administered to K through 12 students who are identified as English language learners, and it measures 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And it reports their progress towards English language proficiency. And it measures it according to the 6 different levels. A score of 4.5 is considered passing. Currently, this year, we have 172 ELL students in our district. In 2015, we had 115. We've been increasing quite steadily over the past 5 years. Our 172 ELL students speak 24 languages. We actually have, at the high school, we have 47 ELL students enrolled at the high school this year, and 37 at the middle school. And our program's expanding such that we had to actually, effective next week, make a change and have one of the teachers help out at one of the other schools, to travel to one of the other schools. Right now, we have a total of 5 ELL teachers. Okay, and except for the high school and middle school, they do travel among the schools. Each year, approximately 25 to 30% of our ELL students exit the ELL program. And they do that not just through the access scores, but also through multiple measures such as their scores on NJSLA, their teacher recommendation and the ESL teacher recommendation and their grades. Okay. Our advanced placement test comparisons, Dr. Labby alluded to a lot of this earlier in his presentation about how well our scores are doing, or really we've made some really nice gains. The score, again, over the past 2 years has increased the average score by over a half point, which is really very, very significant for AP. Again, there were notable increases in calculus, 1/4 of a point, chemistry, 2/3 of a point, 0.66, English language arts, 0.33, history, 0.39, art history went up over half a point, and environmental science went up an average of over a point. Actually, 1.16, okay? And our scores for calculus BC average over 4 points. Okay, a 3 is considered passing. Okay, our SAT scores, again, we have shown some increases in the SAT scores. Here it's broken down by students who report they are going to attend a 4-year college, those who are 2-year college bound. We give you the total students and the state averages. And as you can see, we've increased 9 points over the past 2 years in both language, in the verbal portion and in the math portion, we went up 18 points in the math portion over the past 2 years. Okay, and we are 12 points above the state average in math. Okay, dynamic learning maps, DLM. This is an assessment that's administered to our most cognitively impaired students. Okay, we had a total of 40 students who took this assessment, and here's the range of their scores. Okay, this is an assessment that's administered in beginning in 3rd grade. Science, the lower participation in science is because that's only from 5th grade and 8th grade. Okay, some of the different things, and Dr. Labby spoke about a number of these things already. These are some of the initiatives that got us to where we are now with these test scores. Okay, we did level literacy intervention for the ASI students, achieved 3,000. We added last school year an additional ASI math teacher at SAMHSA. The CTE programs at the high school, new ELL programs, responsive classroom. We did a lot of coaching with New Jersey Teacher to Teacher and with the BAS Science Grant and Fontes and Pinnell we had last year in grade 2. This year, as Dr. Labby said, we have Fontes and Pinnell in grade 3 and in preschool, a new Envision Math series in grades K through 5. For this school, actually, by the end of last school year, we had written and approved 25 new curriculum guides. We are now up to 52 new curriculum guides that we have revised and written as new. We have new textbooks in a number of areas. The Sheltered Instruction Observational Protocol, SIOP, for our ELL students. We have been busy training teachers in that. The high school academies, the Business Academy, the Education Academy. We're working on the STEM Academy for September of 2020. We have an instructional coach at the middle school who's working with teachers in all content areas. We have 2 additional ASI math teachers for this school year at SAMHSA. The middle school is implementing Lunch and Learn to provide support for students at lunchtime in language arts. We have opportunity rooms at both the middle school and high school. We have a new AP Computer Science program, which was funded by the grant we received. We are looking for approval of 4 different CTE programs at the high school: accounting, marketing, computer science, and education. And we now have the Rutgers University Behavioral Health Program at the elementary schools. And one other thing which I forgot to include on here, which I think is really very notable, is that for this school year, we have 319 students here at the high school who are enrolled in dual enrollment classes at Middlesex County College. They are receiving college credit for our high school classes. And that's an increase, that's more than double from the previous year. We had 151. So we're really moving our students along. So. Sure.
Yes, give a nice big hand. And with the CTE programs that Dr. Shadyac referenced, we'll be eligible for Perkins Grant funds next school year. So we're excited about that as well. Again, I mentioned that Mr. Glock-Malloy couldn't be here today. He too, we too must give on his behalf a presentation that is required by the state of New Jersey. The Anti-Bullying Statute requires us to self-assess our district, each school and our district, in terms of HIB self-assessment ratings. So I'm going to go through this quickly. Again, you can find this presentation in the agenda portion of the Board of Education page of our website. Please visit it. It'll also be attached to TalkSoup as well. But again, this is just justification that self-assessing our performance in terms of preventing or at least addressing harassment, intimidation, bullying is part of statute. Again, those assessment ratings must be available for the public to comment on during the Board of Education meeting, which we are doing now, which anyone here will have an opportunity to make comment or ask questions about. The Department of Education will take our ratings and they'll create what is called a district as well as a school grade report consisting of 2 grades. The average, the district grade will be the average of all the schools as well as the rating that they provide us as a district. Normally, they're one and the same. We are required to post these grades. They will be on our website, and they will also be reposted on the website when the Department of Education gives us theirs. It consists of 8 domains. One is HIB programs, approaches, and other initiatives, trainings on Board of Education approved HIB policy, other staff instruction and training programs, curriculum and instruction on HIB and related information, HIB personnel, school-level HIB incident reporting procedures, HIB investigation procedures, and HIB reporting. We assign a grade. The school safety teams meet, and they self-assess by giving either a 0, 1, 2, or 3 in each one of those domains. Again, I mentioned earlier the grading for the district will include the average score of all the schools as well as the score that the Department of Education gives us. Here are the scores that our safety teams self-assessed and determined for their ratings to be, beginning with the high school, moving down through Wilson, and then finally the district average. As you can see, the district average is a 69. And again, these are determined by the school safety teams in conjunction with the building principal. Here's a comparison between those grades in previous school year grades. As you can see, there's some ebb and flow. That's just based upon how each school safety team felt that they performed each year in addressing each one of those domains. Okay. So I'll move on. This is the portion that many of you probably came out to see. This is the review of the budget calendar as well as the strategic plan, one which I just gave to the Samsel Upper Elementary School faculty today. So hopefully I can get through this rather quickly, but also in a manner in which you feel comfortable with the information that I've provided. Beginning with our budget calendar, we're asking the board to approve this later on in the agenda. Here's our budget development calendar. It begins with the State of the Schools address today, and it concludes with the public hearing on May 5th, and finally the submission of our tax certificate on May 20th. As you can see, and I'm looking at Mrs. Coglianese here, we are tentatively planning on Let the Children Lead on March 3rd. However, that can change, it can flip-flop if necessary because of the fact that sometimes the state is delayed in giving us our state aid, so we have to flip-flop that. So that could happen, but as of right now, we're going to shoot for March 3rd for Let the Children Lead. So that begins, let's go into our strategic plan. But before we do, let's take a quiz. I'd like you to take a look at each one of these schools, of our schools, and try to see, and if you've been to one of my presentations already, please do not let the other people answer these. Try to guess the ages of our schools, beginning with the high school all the way through to the granddaddy, Wilson, and then the second granddaddy, Sullivan. All right, so the high school, anybody can guess how old do you think the high school is? 55. No, that's the age I'm going to retire. I often get it confused too. Anybody else? 51. Good answer. Here we go. The answer is 57. It was built in 1962. How about the middle school? Mr. Glahusky, do not say, oh, he's not here anymore. Mrs. Johnson, don't say a word. What did you say? 51. They just celebrated their anniversary, right? Yep. All right. Now, our youngest school, but this is a trick question. What about, and you know this answer. This is a two-part question. When was it originally constructed and when was it reopened? All right. When was SAMHSA reopened? What was it? 2004. All right. He knows because he was the building principal at the time. When was it originally constructed? Does anybody know? 62? Good try. 1952. So it's 15 years of age. The Truman School is if we're going to count SAMHSA as our youngest school, the Truman School is our second youngest school. What year do you think that was built in? Think of the Brady Bunch. Think of the Brady Bunch. 1972. What was the hit song back then? 47 years of age. And Eisenhower just had an anniversary with Eisenhower. Arleth. Now we get into our elder statesmen of the district. How old do you think Arleth is? Mr. Preston, please do not blurt it out. 37? Anybody else? 105. Good try. It is 60. It is 60. By the way, the same age as me. It is 60. It was built in 1959. And the Wilson School. 97, close. Yeah. 86, it was built in 1933. And believe it or not, it was originally built to be an elementary school, but it changed to a what in 1939? The high school. And then it changed back into an elementary school in what year? When did the high school open?
62.
62. You see how, you get me now, right? We're connecting. And finally, the place that I like to refer to as the palace. The Slover School. How old do you think the Slover School is? Oh, but not as old as the Wilson School. It's 65. And another very interesting tidbit about Slover, and I'm going to put this in Talk Soup, and I know all of you read Talk Soup. I do. I know that. But interestingly enough, when you think about immunization and vaccinations, immunization laws and vaccination laws were actually sparked by an incident that occurred at the Slover School. Unfortunately, in 1954, when the Slover School opened, a kindergarten student died of polio. And the superintendent at the time had to rush to New York City and get the serum and get it to all of the students in the school. And they didn't have the all-call system that we have. They had to actually blare the volunteer fireman sirens all around town so people would know to go to the Sayreville School to get the serum because of this. And after this, legislators began to look at, we need to create vaccination and immunization laws. It's actually an article that's posted in the paper. It will be in TalkSoup. I know all of you read it, so it'll be in there for you to read.
And no, I was not on the board when that occurred.
But people think Mr. Walsh was. Okay, so I gave you a little description of how old our buildings are, but here's something else that you may or may not know. Although we've attempted to do work in our buildings, particularly on envelopes, many of our buildings have the original windows, doors, and roofs from when they were originally constructed. And while we have, in some cases, replaced some boilers and some unit ventilators, many of our schools have the original unit ventilators and boilers in them right now. In fact, the Sayreville School, which is 65 years of age, that is the original boiler. And Mr. Coleman'sberger has broken many of toes kicking that thing to get it to start because it's half full of sludge right now. And the electrical grids. Again, while we've made some efforts to upgrade them, particularly at Sayreville just recently, many of our electrical grids are the same grids that were installed when our buildings were originally constructed. So, as a Board of Education, we met in the summer for our first Board of Education retreat. And during that retreat, we came to the conclusion that we must strategically and methodically improve our facilities because they are the environment in which we are asking our staff to perform in and our students, most importantly, to learn. So we came up with some key questions. How can we keep our students and staff safe in our aging facilities? How can we continue to increase student achievement? We've been doing a lot of things. You hear of all the things that Dr. Shediak's doing, but we continue to ignore something, the learning environment. Does the learning environment play a pivotal role in student achievement? Or does it play more of a role now than it has in the past? And if you're looking into that, does the climate or the temperature in the classroom impact the performance of our staff as well as the ability of our students to learn at maximum potential? If we were to ever consider putting HVAC in our buildings, do we have the electrical grids to generate that kind of power? Mr. Sayak mentioned it earlier. Can we develop an 18 to 21-year-old program? And if we can, where do we put it? Transportation. This has been a concern that's been expressed to us from year to year to year. And although this year we had probably one of the best years I've ever experienced here in Sayreville with regard to transportation because of our amazing transportation staff led by Ms. Howell, but many of our parents wish that their children could be transported by our drivers. So we've made a conscientious effort to try to increase our fleet. In fact, over the past 5 years, we've increased it by about 11 buses. How can we continue to do that, though, and safely maintain those buses is another key question. And if we are to do things to our building in terms of climate control, how are we going to offset all of those energy expenses that have been increased or created due to that? So when we came up with some needs, well, because of those questions, we realized that we need to repair and install new central heating and cooling systems. If not for all of our classrooms, at least for our larger rooms and our classrooms that are on second and third floors. And in order to do that, we need to replace inoperable or inefficient boilers, heating, and current HVAC systems. We have one school that's completely air-conditioned in Truman, and that system is about ready to go kaput. It was built in 1972. If you've been to Truman lately, you'll see buckets all over the place. It's because of the condensation coming down from it. We need to take a look at our electrical infrastructure. Last year, 2 years ago, Sayreville was out of school for 2 days because of those grids. We had to replace the transformer and the wiring to the electrical grid there. We need to address our aging roofs, windows, and doors.
We did replace 2/3 of the windows at the Arliss School at the cost of about $1.2 million.
I think that was about, I think it was half that,
Half of it,
yeah.
the 2/3. And,
Yeah.
and right now, we're replacing half of it at Eisenhower at the cost of about $700,000. But through a regular budget cycle, if you're doing the math, it will take us a good 10 to 15 years to be able to get all of those replaced. And by the time we replace them, we have to start replacing the other ones. We need to renovate the Sillover School. Because of the preschool expansion aid, we are now looking to take all of our preschools out of Samsel and move them into a building where they can all be together. We toured a facility last week that we think is perfect. So we are in the process of negotiating a lease with that facility so that we can put 22 preschool classrooms in it. Take all those kids out of Samsel, and then what we would probably do is move the central office staff over to Samsel, vacating Sillover for a small portion of that building to continue to be buildings and grounds, but the bulk of the building being used for our 18 to 21-year-old program in an alternate high school. And we need to construct a new bus complex. If you've ever seen the bus garage behind us over here, it's abysmal. The fact that we have our mechanics working in that garage is something that I feel is completely unnecessary and has to change. First of all, there's only really one operable bay. There needs to be at least 3 so that we can safely maintain them. But also, we need to have all of our drivers together, a place in which all of our drivers can go, have a space for their own, a locker room, a place where they can all be together with our director and her administrative staff, with our mechanics. One place all of our transportation workers can be together, and more importantly, a place where our mechanics can maintain all of our vehicles. And finally, we need to consider installing solar so that we can offset our energy costs. So let's go back to controlled learning environment, controlled climate. Research strongly and universally correlates increased student achievement in climate-controlled environments. Teaching is improved and learning is enhanced. It's there, it's bold, it's in research. There is a statute out there. It hasn't been passed yet, but the statute is proposing that if a classroom is not between the temperatures of 65 and 79 degrees, that it be relocated. More than half the schools in New Jersey at this moment have complete air conditioning in them. In Middlesex County, more than half of the school districts are completely air conditioned. And 92% of them have more than one school that is air conditioned, and many rooms in the schools that are not fully, they're air conditioned as well. Where do you think we fall? The 8% in Middlesex County. Let's take a look at the calendar. Last spring was a pretty mild spring. But when you incorporate the fact that the exterior temperature is probably 5 degrees less than the temperature in the classroom at the ground level, because of all the technology being used, because of the lighting, because of the human beings in there expelling carbon dioxide. So remember that 79 degrees, right? 79 degrees. There were 11 out of 19 days last May in which the temperature on our ground level classrooms, was above 79 degrees. And if you account into that our second floors are probably 10 degrees warmer than our first floors, those 11 days, if you worked on the second floor, it was about 90 degrees in your classroom. 11. There were only 8 days in May in which the temperature was not below 80 degrees on first floors or below 90 degrees on second floors. June. Now, in June, this past June, again, wasn't that hot. Only 5 days in which the temperature in ground level classrooms was less than 80 degrees, or on second floors, less than 90 degrees. And there were 3 days in which the temperature outside was well above 90 degrees, which means if the temperature on our second floors wasn't 100 degrees, it sure as heck felt like it with the humidity. And finally, this past September, again, only 5 school days in which the temperature on our ground level floors was below 80 or below 90 in our second floors, and 4 days in September in which it probably felt like 100 degrees on our second floors. In fact, on October 2nd, guys, the temperature outside was about 92 to 93 degrees. Mrs. Coglianese was sending me thermometers of classrooms that had fans pumping, and they were 93 degrees in those classrooms. So again, are we going to continue to ignore the obvious? Can children learn in 94 degrees to 100 degree temperatures? Can our teachers perform to the best of their abilities in that? Can our support staff perform to the best of their ability in that kind of environment? You know, I did give a presentation the other day at one school, and they said, Dr. Ladd, what's the big deal? When I was growing up, we didn't have it. I turned out okay. And my answer was simply this. What we are asking children to do now is far different than what we were asking them to do back when I was in school. We expect them to know far more and be able to do far more than when I was in school. And they're not able to do it because they're in environments in which it's just too difficult. Now, the performance of our students at Truman last year was primarily the result of our amazing faculty, leadership there, and support staff. The number one factor in learning is the teacher. Hands down, by far. But can anybody tell me that climate control didn't play a role in that? Because it's the only school in this district where there was climate control. Think about it. Spillover schools. Basically, our children need the vocational skills, the self-determination skills, the independent living skills, the self-advocacy skills that they're going to need to be contributors to their community when they leave public education at the age of 21. We have a responsibility to do that. And I believe that we can do it, our teachers can do it far better than any teachers that we send to a private out-of-district school. That we send our students to a private out-of-district school where they work. But more importantly, if you do the math, think about this. We started a high school multiple disabilities program where our children with intellectual and developmental disabilities are educated in. We started it 3 years ago. They are now juniors. Prior to that, we would send them out of district to a private out-of-district school at the cost of about $90,000 per student. We don't do that now. But if we don't create an 18 to 21-year-old program that will appropriately meet their needs, in the year 2021-22, it's going to cost this district about $1 million to send them all to out-of-district schools. There's about 12 kids in each grade level. By year 22-23, we'll be sending 2 grade levels out at the cost of nearly $2 million. And by the year 2023, when 3 cohorts are out of district, it's going to cost us close to $3 million to educate them. If you take that number and you also incorporate the fact that if we create an 18 to 21-year-old program, we'll probably be able to generate anywhere between $200,000 to $300,000 in revenue because we'll take tuition kids from other districts. By the way, there's only one game in town in Middlesex, and that's New Jersey Ed Services Commission. We could take those students in. If we take that revenue and compound it by the numbers there, the renovation of the Spillover School could probably be paid off in 5 years. We have a responsibility to educate those children, but we also have a fiscal responsibility. So you might be asking, Dr. Labby, what did you drink before this meeting? How are we going to be able to do all this? I can answer that question later off the record, by the way. How are we going to do this? We created 4 macro strategies, school education, finance, macro strategies, that we are potentially considering implementing to address all the needs that I've just identified to you. So the first is the one you're most familiar with. It's the Bond Referendum. And according to that, in order to get the funding that we need, we're going to need voter approval. We do have a plan for a referendum, as Mr. Sayak mentioned earlier. The next is called an Energy Savings Improvement Project. Again, this presentation will be on the website so you can read more clearly into it. But an energy savings improvement project is basically when an energy company comes out and does an audit. And they look at your energy expenses and they say, you know what? Your lighting is highly inefficient. If you were to replace your lighting, you would save about $300,000 a year. We're going to give you $300,000 so that you can go ahead and replace your lighting, but we're going to keep your savings. It doesn't cost the taxpayers anything. A contract is signed. It all is dependent upon the energy audit. A lease purchase agreement, similar to when you lease purchase a car. You lease it for 5 years. At the end of the 5-year lease, you own the car. We use that in education. We do it for equipment. We did it for our technology infrastructure. We do it for our vehicles. We did it for our buses. We even did it for our paving our parking lots last year. You can do it for new construction as well. Power purchase agreement. That's an agreement you make with a power company in which the power company agrees to install something like solar panels for free. However, they will own the energy that your solar panels create, but sell it back to you at a discounted rate. So here's our plan. What we'd like to do is we'd like to use a referendum to replace our building envelopes, our roofs, our windows, our doors, to upgrade our electrical infrastructure, to potentially install air conditioning, if not in every classroom, but at least in our larger spaces and on our second and third floors, and to renovate the Sayreville School. You might be asking, why did we select those particular items for a referendum? Because each one of those items is considered a school improvement project. And because of that, we are eligible to receive 34 to 40% reimbursement from the state for those projects. The ESIP, the Energy Savings Improvement Project, primarily we're looking at that to replace our lighting with highly efficient lighting. But we may also use that. We also may use that to look and see if we can replace our mechanicals, our boilers, some of our HVAC or HV unit ventilators, to upgrade our grids and so forth. The lease purchase. We cannot wait for a referendum for our bus garage, for our transportation complex. We want to go into a lease purchase finance agreement to construct our bus complex. That will be built into the budget, 5-year payments. But again, the great thing is we can get started immediately on constructing it. And then finally, we do want to pursue whether it would be an economic advantage for us to go ahead and install solar on the roofs that we've replaced with a 25-year warranty so that we can produce energy and get a discounted rate on that energy that we produce. And again, we would install it for free. The power company would install it for us for free.
Dr. Labby, that chime meant that you lost the wager, but please continue. You're doing a phenomenal job.
I'm almost done. It was a valiant effort.
It was. We are almost done, folks.
So when it comes to the lease purchase agreement, the power purchase agreement, and the ESIP, that requires Board of Education approval, and it requires their approval of the New Jersey Department of Education. It does not require voter approval. However, everything listed in the referendum requires voter approval. So within that referendum, Andrew, can we get that one up? Within that referendum, there are 5 major construction components. That's a typo. It should be 5. 5 options. But most importantly, we need your community input. We need input from every member of this community, even members of this community that do not have students in the school district. And we will be sending out notice to all members of the community, asking them to go to our website, click on the link, and complete this survey. But remember this, November 4th, we will be sending you this survey, and we need everyone's input so that we can choose the direction that we want to go in with regard to the referendum. So here are the domains: upgrading the HV and HVAC, particularly in larger spaces and on upper floors, renovating the Sayreville School, and also replacing the roofing in the windows. So we have 5 options. Option A, which you can see right here, it's pretty huge. We call this the all-inclusive option. Option A, what Option A provides is it replaces the roofs in every school that it's applicable for, the windows in every school, and it would provide air conditioning for every room in every school in this district. But as you can see, it comes at a high cost, a cost of about $71 million to air condition every room in every school in this district. When you include the cost of renovating Slover, which is about $88.6 million, you're talking about a $99.7 million referendum. The impact on the average assessed home would be about $295 per year. However, that impact will decrease by year, and when our debt from the last referendum is paid in 2030, that debt will probably decrease by 30%. So that $295 will decrease by about 30% in the year 2030. So option A is everything included. It's the roofs, the windows, and air conditioning in every room in every school. Option B. Option B, I keep looking at the wrong one. Option B, similar to option A, but it only includes air conditioning in every room in every school for the Eisenhower School, the Arliss School, and the Truman School. Why did we pick Eisenhower and Arliss? Because they have the oldest mechanicals that are in desperate need of replacement. Why did we decide on Truman? Because they currently have air conditioning, and that air conditioning, as I mentioned earlier, is about ready to go. It also includes the windows and the roofs, and the larger spaces in every school, and the classrooms on second floors in the schools that have second floors. And there's the tax impact for that. Option C, no school would have complete air conditioning except for Truman. In fact, we wouldn't even replace Truman. So if the Truman system goes, the Truman system goes. So the only thing that we would do is the air conditioning in the larger spaces and on the second floors in the buildings that have second floors, as well as the roofs and windows. That's option C. As you can see, the tax impact is considerably lower. But once again, no school will have air conditioning in every single room. In Truman may, but if the Truman system goes, it won't be replaced. Option D. Option D only includes the cooling of larger spaces. Again, now option D, no school has air conditioning in every room. No more second floors, just large spaces, but the roofs and the windows. And then finally, option E. Option E is just the roofing and the windows. So as I mentioned earlier, we do need your help. We need your feedback. I will be sending out a survey to the entire community on November 4th. We will make sure that we get an advertisement in the Suburban indicating to residents, particularly those that do not have students in the district, to go on to the survey, complete the survey. The link will be on our website. I will be annoying all members of the school community with emails, talk soup, reminding people to go ahead and complete the survey. The survey will consist of an introduction with this presentation, if you care to see it again. It's going to ask you to value the facilities and the learning environments for our students. It's going to ask you how satisfied you are with the facilities and the learning environment for our students and staff. It's going to ask you for recommendations on how to move forward. And most importantly, it's going to ask for your opinion on which option you would support. Some final things that I want you to consider. As I mentioned before, when the referendum debt from our last referendum is paid, there will be a decrease of about 30% in our debt services. if you're looking at municipalities in New Jersey, 60% of school districts, 60% of municipalities in New Jersey have higher tax bills than that of which we have in Sayreville. Currently, we are underfunded by about $24 million a year here in Sayreville. Even though the state over the past 3 years has been providing us with $2 million of equalization aid each year, they are still underfunding us according to their funding formula by $16 million a year. And the local fair share from taxpayers is underfunded by $8 million. When you combine the two, our school district is being underfunded by about $24 million a year. Some other things to consider. Of the school districts with high schools in New Jersey, we are the 11th lowest in per pupil expenditures, meaning there are only 10 other districts in this state that pay less than we do per student. However, of those districts with 3,500 or more students in, we are the lowest. We pay the lowest per pupil in districts with high schools that have more than 3,500 students in them. We spend $1 million less than the closest one to us. And then finally, we love to compare ourselves to North Brunswick because they're about the same size as us, they have pretty much the same demographics as us, and the same socioeconomic status as us. They spend $7 million more a year to educate their children than we do. That, I don't know how far I was over, but that concludes.
Actually, I'm very impressed.
That concludes our presentation. At this time, I'd like to direct the board to ask any questions that you feel are necessary with regard to anything presented this evening during our State of the Schools.
Does the board have any questions? And look, we can schedule a follow-up as well in November to go deeper, in particular on the student achievement data that we received. But does the board have any questions now? If not, while the public is still here, I'll open up for the public in case they have any questions about the state of the schools.
I have a question on the goals. Should I wait for the agenda?
No, you can ask it now.
On the goals, there was nothing on SAT scores. Did you guys consider putting a goal to raise the SAT scores?
It was considered, but we felt that the goals that we had were quite enough.
Okay. Other questions? Okay. I'll open it up to public then at this time. Any questions regarding the state of the schools, regarding the HIB presentation, regarding the presentation on our test scores, or regarding the referendum presentation? Wow.
I have a question on the referendum.
So in an hour and 10 minutes, you answered everything.
Oh, it was an hour and 10 minutes? I was over by 10 minutes? Darn.
Yeah, questions?
I blame it all on Maryland.
Yeah. You can blame it on Eric. It's all Eric's fault.
Hi, Eric.
If you could just explain, you talked about per pupil spending.
Yes.
The per pupil spending, if we pass this referendum, is that going to change the per pupil spending since it's all facilities?
I believe it would, yes.
And what is the ratio in the per pupil, in that spending? Isn't most of it teachers?
I don't know the answer to that
Isn't the
question.
bulk of that cost
The bulk
teachers?
of our budget in general is
Personnel.
Staff and benefits.
Right, but when they do the per pupil spending, how much do they use? Do they use any facilities in that, or any of
Well,
the
there
debt?
are facilities in there. The thing that I'm going to check, because I don't recall offhand if the debt service is in there, but I'm going to check that right now.
Okay,
But facilities in general, yes.
the facilities.
It's just
So
anything that's
if
in the
this
debt
referendum
service.
is passed, I just want to know, is there going to be any change in the per pupil spending?
I'm going to check that for you right now.
Well, one thing that will change is we've been getting word from the Department of Education that there needs to be more equalization in terms of the fair share by the taxpayer. If we're going to continue to get more equalization aid, they need to see more of that fair share increase as well. And as I said before, we're $8 million underfunding the fair share. So by increasing that number, that will enable us to continue, hopefully, to get more equalization aid as we proceed.
So if we increase our local taxes, you're saying the state will give us more money?
I think that that's going to be taken into consideration with regard to the amount of equalization aid that they continue to provide us with, yes.
Okay, and I have a more specific question. It was about the roofs. You said most of the roofs were over 20 years old, and I know since I've been here, we have done many of the roofs. So which ones, like, do
Jimmy?
you have a, like, which ones are over 20? I thought, like, since I've been here, I think we've done a lot of the schools.
There's also some that are partial roofs, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's this, a part of the high school. How old is that? I'm sorry.
6.
Six. So the Truman roof is 6 years old.
20 years old.
So we're talking like portions of roofs. But when, is this referendum, when you say you're going to do the roof, you're doing the whole roof of every school?
No.
No,
Applicable
just the
roofs,
part
right.
that's
Yep,
over the
yep,
20 years?
Over the
Okay.
warranty, yep. We originally had that, but that was about $5 million more, so we cut that.
Okay. And is there any costs associated with this referendum that would hit the general fund for the regular budget that does not in debt service? Like, for example, you want to do, like, is like the buses?
The
for
bus
example,
complex would be part of the budget,
will be part
But
of the
that's
budget.
also not part of the referendum.
not part of the referendum. It's that would be the lease purchase agreement that we would use to do the
Well,
bus
I'll
complex.
just make it a little
So
simple.
the
I'll just
budget
use
would
an
be paying for
example
that.
that probably, like, for example, you're going to buy more buses because you want to bring it in-house, and then you'll hire drivers. So is that a wash? There will be no increased costs to the general fund for bus drivers because it's going to wash out because of the...
Well, I mean, we didn't talk about in this presentation, the purchase of more buses or more drivers. This presentation primarily focused on the construction with regard to transportation, the construction of a new bus complex so that we can safely maintain those buses.
Okay.
However, I think that a goal of ours is to continue to steadily increase our fleet so that we could at least get to about 50%. Right now, we only transport about 30% of our kids. So we'd at least like to get at some point to 50%. How fast we're going to get to that, I don't know. But in terms of this presentation, we did not discuss at all the purchase of new buses, although it is a long-term goal of ours. This presentation talked about how the fact that we continue to increase our fleet, but we are neglecting to look at the fact that with our increased fleet size, we can't safely maintain these buses using the current garage that we have.
Okay, and the other question, you talk about, and I know this had come up at one of the presentations, and I guess the answer wasn't all that clear to me. People have asked, so if you do all these windows, you do all this air conditioning, what's the timeline that people will actually see completion?
We are hoping, I mean, so for instance, if the referendum were to pass, our plan is to submit to the Department of Education by March so that we could have a vote by the last Tuesday in September. And by the way, according to the latest article that came out, of the September vote that just passed, there were it was up for $189 million total in the state of New Jersey. And I believe all but one of those referendums were passed for a total of $165 million last year that voters approved. But if we were to have it approved in September with regard to the development of plans and the bidding process, we're hopeful that we could probably begin as early as the summer of 2022.
And how many years would this take to complete?
2021.
How many years do you think this would take to complete?
I think in terms of the HVAC, it's probably going to take at least 2 years.
2 years.
On the roofs, I always thought the roofs would take the longest. The roofs probably will take the shortest amount of time. The windows, 2 to 3 years.
So is it going to be in increments, like you're going to do something first and then move on, like for the whole project to be done?
Yeah, we've had preliminary discussions with our architect about that. I think that the goal with regard to at least the air conditioning would be the schools that have second floors. Because again, of the statistics that I provided you with regard to the temperatures, we would begin by focusing on those schools in which the kids and the staff members on those second floors are forced to work and learn in environments that could be close to 100 degrees.
Ready? Okay. Oh, sorry, I just want to
No, go
answer
ahead.
Mrs. Backo's question
Yep.
from earlier. So the state does remove the debt service as well as our capital projects from the tuition calculation.
So then this wouldn't change that cost,
That would not.
not change it.
And yet you asked a question about the budgetary, general fund impact as a result of the
Right.
referendum too. I think there's going to be puts and takes with this because
Right.
when you look at, for example, the 18 to 21-year-old program, that's going to be money that we're not going to need to budget for out of district placement that we can now educate those
Right,
students.
and I understand that, but I was just looking for, is there a bottom line figure? Did anybody work that out?
Yeah, I don't think we've worked that out yet because we don't know what option we're going with yet. That's.
We would need community input for that.
Okay, and when this survey goes out, it was like option 1 through whatever, A through E. Is there going to be a none of the above?
That certainly can be created, yeah.
I'm just curious to see
Yeah,
if that comes
absolutely.
back.
If you're not in favor of a referendum at all, yeah.
Okay. Other questions from the board? Mr. Farley, what did you think?
I thought it was pretty impressive, Dr. Labby.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Farley.
Good answer.
So, look, just some closing comments, not so much on the referendum, because I hit that earlier, but on the state of the schools. We joked about the hour time limit. Please don't think that the board isn't interested in the accomplishments. But as I said to Dr. Labby, the mind cannot absorb what the buttocks cannot endure. So I wanted to keep this to an hour because I knew that all of you, had things that you needed to do as well. But when you think about it, I really gave our administration an impossible task to sum up all of the accomplishments that occurred in the last year in what ended up for the state of the schools only being about 35 to 40 minutes. And you can see, all of the accomplishments that were highlighted there. When you look at our test results over the last 5 years, you see the improvements across the board. In particular, you see the improvements, and one of the things that's very impressive is the fact that when you look at our individual subgroups, the English language learners, the Hispanic population, the Black student population, they're increasing at the same level of performance as the white students are in our district, which means we're not creating a larger achievement gap. Certainly, we've got opportunities. When you look at the individual places in where students transition from school to school, there seems to be a setback in student performance as they go from 3rd grade to 4th grade, as they go from 5th grade to 6th grade, as they go from 8th grade to 9th grade. That's an opportunity. We've got opportunities with regard to, as I talked about, those individual subgroups. There is an achievement gap, and that's not indicative of only Sayreville, that's indicative of a national trend. We've still got an opportunity to close that achievement gap. But when you look at the overall trends over the last 5 years, and when you look at all of the things that we've accomplished together to achieve those results in terms of curriculum, in terms of extracurricular, in terms of investments that we've made in lacrosse, investments that we've made in band, investments that we've made in Fontes and Pinnell, we are moving this district forward at a tremendous pace, especially thanks to all of the educators that we employ here in Sayreville who make their work every day, who make the work of our children their personal commitment. So please know that this Board of Education is incredibly grateful to all of the work that each of you do for our students here in Sayreville every day. And we're especially appreciative as well to our Superintendent of Schools, especially last year, because when you look at all of those accomplishments that were up there, we didn't have a superintendent for 6 months, because that superintendent was also our high school principal. So we accomplished a tremendous amount in the last school year, and we look forward with a lot of excitement as to what we're going to do together in the upcoming school year. So thank you very much, and congratulations. Okay. All right, we are moving on to board discussion. So we'll start off with finance and infrastructure. Mr. Esposito, I hear we're having a referendum?
Yeah, really quick, okay? Just a couple of things. So the baseball field, I believe the SUS parking lot, and They're complete, Erin? They're done? 100%? Good? The locker rooms, they're done 100%. And we taken some of that money we got in food services, and Arlith Eisenhower are getting new refrigerators, and the high school's getting a mobile heated cabinet. And that's it. That's all I got. Nice and quick.
All right, very good. Any questions on finance and infrastructure? Okay, we're going to open up to public at the end of the meeting. Okay? Student achievement, Mrs. Rubio.
It's not that I don't want to give my report, but in the state of the schools, many of the achievements were mentioned. So we'll pass on student achievement if that's all right with the board.
I think that works.
Second.
Okay, second. Personnel, Mr. Callahan.
Personnel Committee met a little earlier tonight. We discussed the positions that are listed in the agenda, Section D. They also listed the job descriptions in C3 through C6, and if you want me to read them, I can, Mr. Walsh, or we're going to we'll just refer to those job descriptions as well. But that was it. It was a short meeting.
Okay. Questions on personnel? Okay, governance. We had inadvertently omitted the second reading of the policies in September that we had put on for first reading in August, so they're back. There are no changes from the first reading. We're just approving them now on the agenda for second reading. And we do need a policy or governance committee meeting for some additional policies that Dr. Labby has sent me, as well as about 17 to 20 that I have modified from New Jersey School Board's updates as well. So we'll be scheduling that meeting, and we'll get those to the board for November. First reading in November, second reading in December. SPAC and Blue Ribbon, Mrs. Bloom and Mrs. Rubio. And Mrs. Rubio, I believe you are delegating to Mrs. Bloom since she was able to attend the school tour. So what does our new preschool look like?
It looks good. It's a big school. It needs to be cleaned out. It needs technology. It needs security, but the facility is certainly large enough. We were all pretty happy with it. And now we just have to work out the details with the diocese.
I have a question. So if we're only going to be able to fit X amount in the school we looked at, or you guys looked at, is it my understanding that the high school's empty? And why aren't we looking at a larger facility to get everybody in one?
No, the high school is rented.
It's not empty.
It's rented out.
Accelero uses it.
Okay, but are we looking at other facilities possibly to get everybody in one? or
You know, we
is it
can,
not
but
even
I think the facility that we have in mind is perfect, and I think that we do have some community organizations that want to partner with us that will enable us to fill the remainder of those classrooms that we need. So, you know, the facility probably will accommodate 22 classrooms, 15 students in each classroom. We're going to need more than that. We're probably going to need a good 8 to 10 more classrooms if we reach the universe that we're expecting to reach with regard to our 3- and 4-year-olds. And we do have about 8 partners, community organizations that have confirmed with Mr. Nasser that they'd be willing to partner with us. So we would just basically utilize those organizations to accommodate the remaining students in.
So when are we going to have discussions on that? Because that's very interesting to me. So what about going out to other facilities? When is that? When do you foresee us speaking about that?
We can talk about that at any
This year?
time. You know, basically, there are 2 organizations that are on this agenda right now. We're asking you to approve their contracts. But I've stated on a number of occasions, I don't want the preschool expansion aid to be something that is bad for the community and the organizations that rely upon our 3- and 4-year-olds to have a business. You know, in some communities, they take those 3- and 4-year-olds away from those organizations, and those organizations go under. I don't want this to be a bad thing. We want to educate the majority of our students, and we'll educate 80 to 90% of them together in one school, but I don't think it's a bad thing sharing the wealth with the organizations within the community so that they too can have a hand in educating our students. And yes, we do have to use a good portion of the money that we receive from the state to pay for their tuitions. However, we are getting some money back with regard to administrative fees for doing so. So it's not like a complete wash. It's almost about $2,000 per student that we get back as a school district for administrative purposes. So, again, we had many organizations in the community contact Mr. Nasser or myself saying, how can you do this? You're going to drive me out of business. And that's not the purpose of this aid. This aid is for our parents, our children, and the organizations that have been previously serving those parents and students. So we definitely can talk about it, but, I feel strongly that, that I want this aid to be something that the whole entire community benefits from.
Okay, so I'm glad we'll talk about it, because it's something that needs to be discussed further. But we're only doing this for a year, right, for this one tonight? Till
The schools that are on this, it's just for this year, but, again, the plan is to continue, provided that they meet the requirements of our partnership and they educate the students in the manner in which we expect them to. We don't want them to think that we're all of a sudden going to discontinue our work with them either.
Okay. Other questions on the tour of the facility?
Will you be offering before and after school care there, as these other facilities in town do have, early drop-off, late pickup, et cetera?
Yeah, we do have Springboard Education as our before and after care patron. They will be that patron at that new location. They've already reached out. They were at that preschool expansion aid presentation that Mr. Nasta gave, so that our parents now, because they don't have to pay tuition, maybe they will be able to afford before care or after care if appropriate. We would provide that at SAMHSA, and if necessary, we could even, consider busing the students that are at the project before at Slover right now over to the project before at SAMHSA to participate in before or after care. It's not beneficial for them to get a site license for Slover if we're going to be leaving Slover within a year. So, but it has been offered to all of the parents currently in our preschool programs, and certainly will be offered to all of the parents in our new location.
Other questions?
Is that before and after care going to be consistent in price between the students that are ours versus the ones that we're contracting out?
Definitely the students that are in our facilities, it will be consistent, but I can't tell the providers that are partnering with us the pricing that they need to have for.
Okay, so they'll
before
set their
after.
prices?
Yeah.
Other questions? Okay, and Dr. Labby, going back to the referendum for a second, you had asked me for the data regarding the last two referenda that we had and the number of voters and how that turned out. The original high school referendum, which was held in 2005, that had 3,470 voters. And then the high school referendum 2 that was held in 2008, that one had around 3,000 voters. So we're looking, if we do a September referendum, probably at about 1,800 to 2,000, yes votes that we would need, regardless of the project that we go out with.
Thank you.
Okay. Middlesex County School Boards, New Jersey School Boards, Mrs. Bloom.
Yes, I will save the big part for the next meeting in the interest of brevity. But I just wanted to say that New Jersey School Boards has come out with their final report by the Task Force on Mental Health Services, which involves mental health in public schools. So you can access that on their website. I do have a hard copy, if Dr. Labby would like it, because I'm not reading it. But
Oh, it's a hard copy? I don't want the hard copy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's available on the website.
But everybody can access
I'll take
it
that.
on the New Jersey School Board's website. And I just wanted to mention that the topic for the next Middlesex County School Boards Association meeting will be the social and emotional learning. So that's going to be on December 9th at Pierre's. So if anybody is interested in that topic, that's a good
That happens to be
place
my
to go.
birthday. You may have to go and take notes.
Oh, okay. Well, I will have to go because I am president.
All right, any other comments on the Middlesex County, New Jersey School Boards Association report? All right, at this time, we'll open it up to public participation on agenda items only. So if you have a comment or question on any item that's on the agenda, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. On the agenda, yes. So anything that we've talked about or anything that's on the printed agenda. Okay, if you come to the podium, please, and we need your name and address for the record.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Dr.
Hi,
Labby
how are you?
and board. My name is Kathy Consiglio. I live in Sayreville in the Melrose section. I've been a resident of 41 years. I also work in the cafeteria in the high school for 25 years. Dr. Labby, I have a question on this finance item 28. We learned that there was a donation made, and my question is, did they specifically say what balances were to be wiped out?
Basically, what they stated was they want to wipe out all the balance.
Was there a reason for that? And the reason why I'm saying this is we work a lot with the kids with the owed accounts. And a lot of them who do owe money have already been denied from the state. So it seems that that money wasn't going to the right place. If they were denied from the state and they had a big balance, it was no accountability on their part.
Well, again, this is a donation in which an organization, through, their, very generous hearts, wanted to provide our district with. They have an initiative with regard to wiping out hunger.
Excuse me?
With regard to wiping out hunger.
Oh.
And they wanted to make sure that they could do something to impact any of our children who might be adversely impacted by the fact that they owe lunch monies. I think a lot of this came about because of the discussions that have been happening across the state, particularly in Cherry Hill, where they are no longer providing lunches for kids that owe money. I know that I have several parents who have reached out to me who have been not in favor of our current policy with regard to IOUs. So this is their way of, again, giving back to our community by wiping out that lunch debt. And, some other confusion that came about, our lunch program is funded by federal reimbursement as well as the money in which children pay.
Exactly.
It's not funded by the taxpayers. So this is an organization out of the kindness of their hearts that wanted to donate these monies so that all of the lunch balances at that moment would be wiped out. But also, that helps our food service department. That's $11,000 that we can invest back into whatever we need to invest into within our food service department, whether it's more equipment, more personnel, you name it. Those are monies in which we need to invest back into our programs. With regard to children who have been denied, I can't speak in general or specifically about individual children, but I do know that a great number of our students that currently owe money probably would be eligible for free and reduced lunch if their parents were to complete applications for such. So I don't know if kids have been denied, but I do know that a great number of our kids their parents have not applied for it, and that's why one of the goals that Ms. Brown has as part of our finance goals is to increase the number of people that apply for free and reduced lunch, because we do believe that many of the students, not all of them, but many of the students who owe money are students that could potentially be eligible for free and reduced lunch, and for one reason or another aren't applying. Now, we could continue to say, well, you know what, because your parents do not want to apply, you're just going to have to take whatever lunch we provide you. But I've never been in favor of punishing any student
we don't
because
either.
of
There's
the
never
lack of
tried.
follow-through from home. So,
Was denied.
yeah.
It's just that it just seems because we have these same children who don't care that realize now they don't have a balance, so now they're charging again.
And I understand it. I understand that there may have been some children that took advantage, but I also know that there are many children that owe money, not because of, their own doing.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, this is an opportunity for those children to have to again, be able to purchase an entree. So I think, again, it's not the school district paying the lunch debt. It's an organization
Oh,
that
I understand.
raised funds during their collection because they want to prevent people, particularly children, from going hungry, which I think is an incredible cause. And I think we're very, very fortunate to have a community partner willing to do that.
We're going to need you to come to the microphone if you've got further questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was my concern.
You're
Thank
very
you for
welcome.
answering me.
It was good to see you again, too.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
We're in, let's let public ask, and then we can return back to us.
Christina Johnson, how was the Liquid Church aware that students owed money?
Um,
That amount of money was owed?
Basically, the Liquid Church contacted me, and they said, we've heard a lot of publicity with regard to students owing money in the state of New Jersey. Much of it came from the Cherry Hill School District. The Cherry Hill School District made news just recently because they are refusing to let children get lunches at all because they owe lunch money. And it's not just a New Jersey thing. This is something that's impacting school
This is
districts
nationwide.
across the nation. So this is a very high-profile matter within public education. Children owing money and either getting a substandard lunch or getting no lunch because of that. So they contacted me and they basically said, do we have, student lunch debt? And I said, absolutely we do, like every other school district. And they said, basically, we would like to pay for all of the school lunch debt in your district.
And are they going to continue to do that?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. I can't speak for them. All I can say is, again, I was blown away by their generosity and their sense of charity to be willing to do something like that, that not only impacts the individual children that owe money, but it impacts our food service department, which is reliant upon the revenues that we need. And that's $11,000 of revenue that we wouldn't have, that we now have because of this charitable organization.
I won't say things. Okay. I just wanted to know how they knew of this, how they knew of the amount that was owed. I didn't know they had contacted you personally.
They had contacted me and they wanted to know the total amount of debt that we have.
And we did not share any student information associated. This
not
is
at
a
all.
lump
The
sum
total number.
amount. Any other questions from public?
Tammy Taylor, 142 Miller Avenue, Sayreville. I'm the food service manager here at the high school, and I have questions about the new job descriptions for myself and my workers. These attachments were just provided to the public this afternoon, so we had no time to prepare. My question that pertains to myself is number 5, manager cook for myself and the middle school. We're being asked to satellite cook food items as needed to elementary schools. My concern is that we have a satellite manager, we have a satellite school that has been in the past providing those items. I have staff here, but we could use more staff at all times. We're doing a lot of lunches. We have a lot of new items on the menu. Have a heavy workload as it is. I feel that we cannot be providing lunches to the elementary schools if I'm not a satellite school. So that's my question. Is this something that's going to be happening daily, monthly? Am I getting an increase in salary for that? And it's extra workload that I feel that we cannot handle here at the high school.
Okay. Dr. Labby?
Currently, it is, the lunches are provided by the satellite, but we provide far less options for our elementary school students, and we'd be able to provide more options for our elementary school students if we were able to do this.
Okay.
There's right now, there's no time extra here to provide those hot lunches here, those hot items here, and get them out for the elementary schools by the time they have lunch. So that's, one of my questions. My other question is, the job descriptions, are these for new hires or are they replacement for our current workers?
They would be the job descriptions for all of our workers.
So everybody that's here now, they're going to be.
Yeah.
The other concern is that the pounds per package that girls are offered that are going to be made to lift, what if they have ailments now where they cannot lift those items? Are they going to be evaluated by somebody that says that they
Well,
can't?
and those weights from the previous job description have been reduced.
My job description from when I was hired had no weight limits on it whatsoever.
Well, and you made a mention earlier about the fact that this is the first time you're seeing them.
Yeah.
Okay. I was led to believe that these job descriptions were discussed with people in advance. Our food service director had met with people from the food service department to go over some of these job descriptions. So, I apologize that these weren't shared with everyone, but I know that this was done in collaboration. And if you look at some of the weights that are provided there, I understand that 25 pounds is
Well,
somewhat heavy, but
we lift 30-pound boxes of
well,
French fries.
if you look at the
times
job
8,
description.
But I've had shoulder surgery this year, that's why I'm wondering if this is.
Well, I mean, ultimately, things have to be picked up.
Right, exactly.
So we wanted to make sure that it was reasonable. But if there was something that because you have an injury or because you have a physical condition that you're unable to do, accommodations are made.
Right.
We make those accommodations.
Women that are
But we do have to standardize to some degree the weight of lifting that's going to be asked of people to perform. But again, it doesn't mean that we can't be flexible with regard to that. If someone has a physical injury or someone has a physical condition that would prohibit them from being able to lift something of a certain weight, we always make accommodations.
Hi, my name is Darlene. I work in the high school cafeteria as well. And I'm asking if Dr. Labby and the board would dismiss this for tonight so we can maybe possibly sit down with Krista and Nancy and tweak a few. I've met with Krista verbally in the summer and recently on this. I did not share the information with the other ladies because I didn't think it was appropriate for me to do so because we were still discussing it. However, in our discussions, there were a few things that we had agreed upon between us that are different on this paper. And one of them is the weight. The other was the satellite issue that she's referring to, Tammy's referring to. So I just feel that maybe if there was any way that we cannot address this evening and possibly revisit it another time to possibly tweak it to make it, I can't think of the word. So everyone's happy with it?
I certainly have no problem with that if that's something that the board wishes to do. I know that we originally proposed the job description back in July. We asked Dr. Aguiles to go back and make some revisions to that and to work collaboratively with you and Ms. Brown. We are here now 3 months later. However, I certainly, as a superintendent. No, it's not your fault.
Well, we had meetings, and then I had a doctor's appointment that I didn't realize until they reminded me.
So I certainly have no problem.
It sounds like there was a little snafu, so is anyone opposed to?
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to table it.
Okay, so we have a motion to table the job description for the,
Or withdraw, whatever.
or Dr. Labby, would you just be willing to withdraw it?
Yes.
The board would not oppose you withdrawing it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then when I do my report, then I'll withdraw that one.
Thank you for your comments. Dr. Labby will be in touch, and hopefully we can work this out.
Yes,
Will
this
this
way
give
everyone-
more options,
amicable
Dr.?
Amicable, what, conclusion, am I saying it right? I'm nervous, I'm not good at, on a mic.
It's okay.
Dr. Labby?
Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay. No, all right. Will this give more options to our elementary children for hot lunches? When it's ratified?
The proposal in this, yes.
Okay, great.
If we were to do if we would do, the part mentioned by Ms. Taylor with regard to producing lunches for the satellites, yes.
That's great.
provide more
options
at the elementary school.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else we can do for the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll close public at this time. Ms. Kennedy, you still have a question you?
I do.
Okay?
So, Dr. Labby, you mentioned that there were parents who are not in favor of our current policy for students who owe money. What is the policy? Are they getting an alternative lunch?
They get an alternative lunch, I believe it's a turkey sandwich. Ms. Brown, the alternative lunch, if you owe money, is a turkey sandwich if it's over $50. If you owe more than $50, it's an alternative lunch. Yeah, $50.
50 or 15?
50. And then any child that owes less than that, what you can't do is you can't go up and get an extra à la carte item or a snack or anything like that, but you get your main entree.
Okay. And I know that you mentioned that this does not affect the taxpayer, which I completely understand, but I'm just wondering if the price of lunches has been steadily increasing in order to cover the cost of people who don't pay.
No.
No, it's been flat,
It's been flat.
yeah.
For, I
Is it-
can't,
At least as long as I've been here.
at least 3 years.
So there's no built-in fee like what maybe, her kid would pay as opposed to what, because my kid's not paying?
No.
We're not trying to recoup the money, okay. And would there be, if this debt is paid, would there be a plan going forward for chronic non-payers who do not qualify for free and reduced?
We do have a plan. We have a policy and regulation that we try to employ, but, for instance, at the high school, you can't go to the prom, you can't go to various activities, you can't get your diploma if you owe money. But unfortunately, that's the only teeth we have, is when you get to become, get to the high school. Outside of that, we can stop sending, your report cards and things like that, but parents are entitled to certain things regardless if they owe money or not. That's just the way the law works. So we do the best we can. We call parents, our Miss Brown calls them, our principals call them, we send letters home, and so forth. Unfortunately, we don't get much of a response at times. Yes, some parents do pay what they owe, and they do make a conscious effort, but many parents don't. And again, we plead with parents, please fill out the free and reduced application form. But some parents, for one reason or another, are refusing to do that as well. I will say this, though. This is not the only donation that we've received to pay off lunch debt. We had several anonymous parents donate $100 or more to pay off lunch debts. So this is something that not only this organization is aware of that's going on, not only the parent that reached out to the board recently about our policy, but many parents are sensitive to the fact that for one reason or another, and many reasons that don't, revolve around the child, kids owe lunch money and are not able to get some of the benefits that other kids get because of that. And again, yes, there might be people taking advantage of the system, but I think the great majority of our students that owe lunch money, it's not their fault.
Well, I don't ever think it's the child's fault, but I also think there is some role of accountability. And
Yeah.
as much as I think that this is very generous and I think it's beneficial to the district, I do worry that it kind of sets a precedent being out here like, oh, we actually don't have to pay because eventually somebody will. That's my fear.
Yeah, and-
for people who do take advantage. And I know that's probably a small majority, small minority, but it does exist.
And I understand that, and I agree with you that that could happen. But do we take away something that could be beneficial to so many kids and our food service department because of that?
But Dr. Labby, I agree here, because if we as a district held back food from children, we'd go crazy. I mean, it would never happen. I mean that sincerely. Our board would never allow that to happen. Here's my problem with this, okay? And I agree with Carrie. It sets a bad precedent. What you're doing is, if you were to say to me, okay, we're going to take this money, we're going to apply it, they're going to have a fresh start, and they're not going to get back into the same trouble again, fine, okay? But they will, okay? And it's not the children's fault, it's the parents' fault. And the issue, why I'm going to vote no, is because the people that do work and do pay their bills, okay, what are we saying to them? Why are you doing it? You don't have to do it. You're going to get fed anyway. And when your kid gets to high school, pay the debt, and you get your diploma. It just doesn't make sense to me.
But Mr. Esposito, we're not saying anything. We're accepting a generous donation. We're not paying the bill for them. We're accepting a donation from a group of people that want to do good for other people, that want to be charitable. Do you really want to say no to a congregation of people that are willing to donate $11,000 for the betterment? And again, they realize too that some children and their parents may take advantage of this, but do you really want to do that?
You're asking me?
I'm asking everybody.
I'm saying I don't like the message. The donation and the thought is amazing, and it's great. That's not what I'm talking about. The precedent is bad. It is bad. I mean, what are we saying to the parents that pay? Why are you paying?
We're saying that there's an organization out there that's willing to donate money.
It's not the point. I get that.
But that you're asking me a question, I'm answering your question. That's what we're saying. We're saying that there's an organization that's willing to be charitable and pay off the lunch debt that some of our students have. And by the way, there have been other parents who have inquired or have done the same. They're looking to do good. That's it. What we're saying is, we would love you to do good in our district. We appreciate you as community partners. That's what I think we're saying.
I want to say,
If somebody got over, if some people got over this time, we still helped a lot of kids. No, they did.
John, they're eating, it's not that we're...
I understand, but
If we were Cherry Hill, I'd say great, because we would never do that. We would never do that.
I understand.
But if
We're also being generous.
We're feeding
And I know
children.
that's the difference between us having people work here who do care about our kids, not being a
Absolutely.
privatized thing. We have people who
Absolutely.
care and take care of our kids. I understand. I'm not
Right.
100% disagreeing you, but we do have, even if the smaller number of kids that got helped, then
If we help
then
one
got
kid,
over.
we help
Right, if we helped
one
one
kid.
kid, and maybe
What do you help,
that's
John?
the...
Chris, what are we helping?
But
we
we
help
also
the
said
parent.
it's
All right, folks,
time.
one at a
We're
time
helping
here.
the parent. The kid's eating. We would never deny a child food. So here's the question, okay? Let's presume one thing, okay? The bill is paid in full, and now the parents don't pay for lunch for the next 2 weeks, okay? Now he's in the same position he was in 2 weeks ago, except what did we do? We showed the parents that do pay, okay? We said, well, what are you paying for? Someone's going to come along and just pay the bill for you. So I just don't believe in it. I'm sorry. It just goes against my nature.
I
Mrs.
think the
Bloom?
concern is that maybe the most needy who are trying and are paying their bill weren't the ones that benefited. And maybe that some people who just are negligent benefited
hope
from
so.
this. But I think, overall, you have to look at it for what it is. It's a generous donation. The debt is wiped out. I would say that maybe we should make it very clear to everybody that this was a one-time donation. Please don't fall into the trap that, thinking that this is going to be, perpetual, because,
And we have done that.
yeah. And that would be the best we could do.
Other comments on this? We're closed with public now. We're back to the board. Thank you. Any other board comments on this? The only piece that I'll add, I guess two parts to this. When I think about wealth distribution, I think about it on a bell curve. So you've got, the free and reduced lunch segment that's over here. You've got the median income, and then you've got the exceptionally wealthy that goes on the other end of the curve. There's going to be a whole segment of students who don't qualify for free and reduced lunch, but whose families are still just getting by. Now, I don't know the demographics of this group that we're helping, but I have to believe there's a portion of that demographic that is just struggling to get by and just above the poverty line, especially since there's 34% free and reduced lunch here in Sayreville. Is that number correct, 34?
It's a little higher.
30, higher than 34.
About 36%, 36.
It keeps climbing. So there's got to be another, I would say, 4 to 5% that are in that just above the poverty line, just barely getting by, that I would think this type of donation would help. The only other piece that I'll throw out there is this is something that probably could have just flown under the radar, and I have a feeling that tonight we've probably given it more publicity and more notoriety that will help contribute to more people just saying, well, I don't have to pay my bill because we've been talking about it so much.
Well, I hope not.
I hope not either, but sometimes the more we talk about things, the more publicity in the news
Sometimes
it
less is
gets.
more.
Sometimes less is more.
Well, I agree that's a possibility, but I think that if it's a concern of some people who are here who maybe are paying for lunches, then it's worth talking about. And I don't want to sound like, cold-hearted. I mean, I feel like as a person, I do my share in helping, with food drives and feeding the poor. But at the same time, like, I understand what you're saying about the bell curve, but sometimes it's cheaper to buy bread and bologna than to buy lunch at school, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so there are other options, and maybe it's just an education thing. Maybe that's where it comes from. Maybe, when we're meeting with parents about, or maybe there needs to be a time, that we're looking at, and I know it was part of the, another description here about getting more parents to fill out the free and reduced, but, weighing out, like, okay, and if you don't qualify for free and reduced, here's some of your options. And one of them is not just getting lunch and not paying for it, but, here's some, I just think there's maybe a parent education piece that might be helpful too. I don't know.
Well, you know what, I think, and I hear everybody's point, and I think, I hope I could be not on the board, but come to a board meeting in 20 years when this pre-K has finally paid off, because I think more than anything we've done, all the numbers we talked about today and the difference in some of the subgroups, I was talking to Karen earlier about it. I mean, that is really the great equalizer, and I think we're going to see so much benefit from this free pre-K, where now it's not just a parent who can afford daycare, that student's going to daycare. Everybody's going to get educated at the same level, and let's hope that everybody's numbers are closer when we get there. And I mean, again, I keep going back to that because I want to end with something positive, and I still don't think we're doing enough cartwheels over how big of a deal that is for our town, and and on a selfish way, your house price going up, because believe me, people are going to want to move to Sayreville so their kid
This
can have
resident, this town knows what this means.
Yeah,
This is
I hope
huge.
so. I hope
It's
so.
huge. It's huge.
I think you're right, but it's a big deal, and it's and I really think it's going to be a huge benefit to all the children of our town. Yeah.
All right, any further comments on the donation? Okay, hearing none. We've closed public. We're now on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Labby, any highlights from your superintendent's report?
Yeah,
you
just
wish to
rather briefly, again, we talked about the donation. There was also another donation that was made. It was by Ashland for $5,000. We'd like to thank them. We're asking you to approve that. That's going to go toward the purchase of chemistry equipment. By the way, Ashland is also partnering with us for an opportunity for more than actually more than 2 classrooms of students to go to Ashland to participate in on-site lessons with regard to the functional purpose of chemistry within an industry like theirs. So we're incredibly appreciative of both Ashland as well as the Liquid Church for the generous donations that they've made. And we're asking you to approve each on numbers 12 and 28. You can find them on page 4 in the addendum. Number 31 on finance and infrastructure, we're asking you to approve an agreement with preschool education program services, particularly that of which a Garden and Friends and Accelerator Learning, where they will have private classrooms, as well as Accelerator also will have Head Start classrooms. So they will have 5 classrooms, and Garden and Friends will have 1. That can be found again on the addendum, and that's item number 31. Student achievement, we're asking you to approve several new and revised curriculum guides. As Dr. Shediak mentioned, up to date, we're about 50 approved, newly revised curriculum guides. So we have several more that we're asking you to approve this evening. In terms of governance, we're asking you to approve for the final reading the policies and regulations that you referenced earlier, Mr. Sayak. You can find them on page 16. Also, numbers 3 through 4, we're asking you to approve the district goals that we went over, as well as the budget development calendar, all of which can be found on page 17, and it's in the attachments. We just talked about the job descriptions. We're asking you to approve them in items number 6 and 7, which can be found on page 17 in the addendum, but we are asking you to table Manager Cook at the high school and middle school job description that's part of item number 6. So if you don't mind making note of that, we will be tabling, or withdrawing, I should say, I'm sorry about that. We'll be withdrawing that particular job description, which is part of item 6. I believe there are 3 on item 6, so that particular one we're asking you to withdraw. And with regard to personnel, we do have one of those bittersweet moments where we are asking you to accept the retirement of some beloved staff members. I do know that we failed to get Mr. Cifelli on the agenda during our last meeting, so I did take the time to recognize the incredible efforts of Mr. Cifelli. He is formally on the agenda this evening, but I won't go ahead and repeat myself. However, I will talk about Jolly Doss. It is with sincere appreciation that we announce the retirement of Jolly Doss. Ms. Doss has served our children in the role of paraprofessional for nearly 20 years. During this time, Ms. Doss has provided comfort and support to countless students with special needs, beginning at the Eisenhower Elementary School and more recently at the Sayreville Middle School. Her assignments have included classroom support as well as individual student support, and she has provided the highest quality of care in both roles. In fact, Ms. Doss's service to the students has been exemplary. Notably, Ms. Doss received an award for the Education Support Professional of the Year in 2014. Furthermore, she contributed greatly to the culture and climate of the school community, both at Eisenhower and the middle school, and took great care to ensure that classroom procedures were seamless as she helped to maximize instructional time. Beyond school, Ms. Doss is devoted to her daughter Tracy, and is with great enthusiasm that we thank her for her service and wish her the absolute very best in her retirement. Similarly, we're asking you to accept the retirement of Diane Nizolik, who has been a bus driver for Sayreville since September 2001. Diane has always been very friendly and a helpful presence, and is willing to go above and beyond to safely transport her students. For the past few years, she has been instrumental in organizing the trip boards to be sure that all athletic and field trips are staffed in a manner which is fair to all. Her dependability and her commitment have been an asset to the Transportation Department, and she will be clearly missed. On behalf of the students, the staff and faculty, and administration of our district, we can't thank Diane and Jolly enough for the exemplary service that they provided our students first and foremost, and our entire district and community over the many, many years, and we wish them nothing but the absolute best that life can provide them in the next chapters of their lives. Beyond that, on items number 8 and 9, as well as 38 and 39, we're asking you to appoint new staff, both certificated and non-certificated, for the 2019-20 school year. You can find that on pages 21 and 22 in the addendum. And finally, numbers 13 through 16, as well as 41, we're also asking you to approve the transfer of some certificated and non-certificated staff members, and you can find that information on pages 23 through 25, as well as the addendum.
Okay, any further questions or discussion on the superintendent's report? Mrs. Kenny?
Sorry.
No, don't apologize.
On page
Just the manager
18,
cook.
number 6, the stockroom maintenance worker, job description.
Just hold on one second.
Sure.
Dr. Labby's engaged in a conversation. That could be
Were we tabling just the manager cook, or we were tabling both food service?
Both.
All right, so then we're withdrawing, we're withdrawing both. I stand corrected, so please, again, please note that we're withdrawing both food service department job descriptions. That would be the cafeteria worker, as well as the manager cook at the middle school and high school.
Okay, so they'll both be withdrawn.
Withdrawn.
Okay. Mrs. Kenny, your question for Dr.
But
Labby.
not the stockroom evening maintenance worker, that one we're talking about, right?
Yes,
Yes.
as well as the
Sorry.
teacher leader, as well as the teacher
Now I'm
leader.
apologizing.
Got it. So just under major duties and responsibilities, number 1 talks about work to be performed and includes plumbing, electrical, and boiler repair, and I was just wondering if those are specific licenses that people need to have, and if so, would that need to be one of the qualifications listed at the top?
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the work that's performed. All of our maintenance workers have the opportunity to go to take classes so that they can get certificated in particular areas of expertise, just as the ones that you've mentioned there. Yes, our maintenance workers will need certificates in order to lead the maintenance in some of those areas, but they can support in those areas as well. And those are just particular types of activities that they would be performing during their job. However, they will also be doing routine maintenance and so forth. So you can't encompass everything someone's going to be able to do in a job description. Those are just some of the major things that they will be doing during the evening with our two other maintenance workers. Mr. Cohensberg, do you have anything more to add with regard to those job functions?
So, but not necessary to be hired, they can be hired.
Correct.
Without, and then trained.
Correct.
So you're not gonna hire my high school graduate and let him run electricity. Please.
The person that gets hired will have to have a decent knowledge of maintenance work. I can't allow someone to go in and I don't believe to be able to work on, say, electrical, and they'll get hurt. They gotta have a half level.
I
You
just
can't
wasn't
hire
sure if that
your son
needed
now
to be
anyway, 'cause
part
you're a
of,
board member.
what's that?
You can't hire your son now because you're a
No,
board member.
or his friend. I just was wondering if that needed to be part of the requirement, or if that was just kind of understood.
Yeah, if it was a requirement, it would have been listed above that as a prerequisite.
Other questions on the superintendent's report? Ms. Hill, on the bills list, I need to abstain on the checks for CME Associates and Premier Printing. Hearing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the superintendent's report.
So moved.
By Mr. Walsh, I have a second by Mrs. Bloom. Any comments or discussion? Hearing none, roll call on the superintendent's report.
Mr. Balka?
Yes.
Mrs. Backo?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes, but I need to abstain on personnel number 30, the first candidate.
Okay. Mr. Callahan?
Yes, but I need to abstain on number 15, the second candidate. Person, Lori Callahan.
Okay. Mr. Esposito?
Yes, except for item 28 on the addendum.
And your vote is no?
Nope.
Mrs. Kenny?
Yes.
Ms. Rubio?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes, with the abstention noted. Okay. We now turn our attention to public participation on any item concerning the district. If you wish to speak, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the record. Okay, hearing none, we will close public. Our next board meeting is Tuesday, November 19th. And that's it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. By Mr. Walsh, second by Mr. Callahan. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thought there was some.